It's my pleasure to be here today. Gonzaga University holds a warm place in my heart. It was a great place for Cindy to go to school. My only regret is I didn't send our son Michael to go to school here as well. But fortunately, he's doing very well. He lives with us in Charlotte, not with us, but in Charlotte. And I've always been very fond of the university. When Cindy was here, we'd come out 4 or 5 times a year, and she was on a rowing team, and we'd come to events, and it was just a nice place to come and spend time, take that walk along the river every morning. My wife and I get some good exercise, and have some friends that also teach here from that we knew in Utah, so it's kind of been a nice place to come visit and strike up old friendships and see some of the other folks that we've known for a long time. Cindy now lives in Seattle, so we still have a nice excuse to come out and visit the West Coast on a regular basis. And when I was asked to come speak here, I took the opportunity. I like to speak 2 or 3 times a year at universities around the country. A lot of them do case studies on Nucor and our culture and our success and innovation and management relations. But most of all, I come to speak to the students. I have 2 meetings set up throughout the day to sit down with students, part of the leadership program, the comprehensive leadership program, and some students from Hogan Entrepreneurial Leadership Program. So I'm looking forward to speaking with them for an hour or so each during the course of the day. I wasn't quite sure, even though I was given a lot of good information, what kind of audience I was going to have, whether it was going to be predominantly students, predominantly business folks, and people from the community or what have you. So I know there's some customers in the room. So I know there's some people who service our company in the transportation industry. So I know there's some of you who've heard the Nucor story before. All right, so you're just going to have to bear with me as you hear it again, okay? And in fact that you are familiar with it. But how many of you in this room have not really heard much about Nucor, maybe prior to hearing that the CEO was going to come out here and give a talk and you thought you might stop in? Have not heard much about it. Good, good. The rest of you have, and hopefully the stuff that I'll present to you today will give you some keener insight into Nucor and what makes us tick, and how we've dealt with some very difficult times over the last 10 years. 2001, 2, and 3 were very tough times in the steel industry, not so much in the overall economy, but for the steel industry, it was the equivalent of the financial crisis on Wall Street, without all the corruption and greed and all that stuff. But business conditions got that rough. And of course, since September, October of 2008, everybody's world's changed. Whether it be universities and their endowments taking a major hit, students not being able to find the jobs that they were able to find a year or 2 ago, or companies like Nucor having its first losing quarter in its 45-year history. And there have been a lot of recessions in that 45-year history. So this right now has been the mother of all recessions. Some people refer to it as the Great Recession. Part of the talk today is going to see if I get this thing working here. All right. The reinventing and, whoops, now we jump 2 slides. How do we go backwards? Okay. It's kind of like me in the morning, hasn't had a cup of coffee, so it doesn't know what it wants to do. But there's a little bit of history that goes into Nucor, kind of a pre-2000 and a post-2000, and we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. But first I want to give you a little bit about what makes Nucor tick, makes it unique, how we operate, what we do, how big we are, where we're located, things like that, a little background information before we get into what we did to basically reinvent and recharge the company's growth starting in 2000, what was accomplished, what the results were. Then we'll end up with where we are today, and you wouldn't be surprised to know there's a big question mark about where we're going to be tomorrow. There's a lot of questions in people's minds. Companies like to have mission statements. Nucor for decades was kind of, didn't believe in the mission statements per se, although we probably had 100 of them. Our founding father, Ken Iverson, he never really got much into putting things out there in front of folks, except some of the basic core principles of the company, and he beat those into us pretty good in a positive way and with positive reinforcement. But you know, our corporation is made up of over 21,000 employees, both in the United States and Canada, some in Trinidad, Tobago. We had a few in Australia. We've since put that plant on hold. And our goal in the company is very simple. It's to take care of our customers. And we're going to do that by being the safest, the highest quality, the lowest cost, the most productive, and most profitable steel and steel products company in the world. We're going to do that while at the same time we are being stewards both culturally and environmentally in the communities that we live and work. And most of all, we're going to do that by working together as a team. Now, these are all words, but the thing that's driven Nucor's success over these last 45 plus years is walking the talk. A lot of people can say a lot of things, but actually making the right things happen is what stands the successful companies or individuals apart from those who aren't. If you take a look at some of our basic core strengths, you're looking at our culture. It's very unique. We're a non-union company in a heavily unionized industry, have been from day one. We have a very conservative financial practices. Our culture goes way beyond just being non-union. It really more has to do with how you interact with your people. And it's all based upon one simple philosophy that Ken Iverson, our founding father, had that we all have taken ownership of. I've been with Nucor now since 1982. And our management team in Charlotte has been there about the same amount of time. And that is focus on the long term. When you focus on the long term and you're sincere about that and you walk that talk, what you find is you're doing things totally differently, whether it be with your employees, with your customers, with regulatory agencies, with how you focus on your business, what drives you, how you measure your successes. You know, in the construction business, now we used to be known for building steel mills very efficiently and operating them very efficiently. In the construction business, you know, it's kind of like boot camp. You got this drill sergeant, and you go to the job site every day, and you just get on top of everybody, and you ride their butts until the job is done. Probably not going to see them again 6 months from now, or a year from now, or a year and a half from now. But when you are building an organization where you're working to establish trust, loyalty, and ownership, and the same things that are driving the management, you want that all the way down to the newest employee, all right? You don't operate that way with people. You treat them the way you would want to be treated. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the talk. But that is the basic core component to our culture. Long-term focus, treat your teammates the way you would want to be treated. None of us are perfect. We all screw up. We all have bad days. But if we all understand where we're coming from, in the long run, we get back on track in a hurry. We came out of a bankrupt company back in the 60s called Nuclear Corporation of America. And we actually made nuclear instrumentation, if you can believe that. And we've morphed into a steel company over those years, starting with our first joist manufacturing plants in the mid-60s to our first steel mill in the late 60s. We were near bankrupt, so the core founding fathers of the company had that in their background. They lived it. They didn't have any money. They had to make do with nothing and get things done, kind of like a Depression-era mentality. And that's where our company grew out of. And we grew out of that period, but we did not lose the very conservative financial practices that we have made part of the company's culture. Don't take on too much debt. Don't take on more than what you can pay back. Okay? We focus on profits, not just growth for growth's sakes. Growth in profits is what you're after. If you're a profitable company, you can do a lot for your people, a lot for your teammates, a lot for your shareholders, and a lot for your customers. We have a highly variable cost structure, which was unique in our industry because we adopted a new technology called electric arc furnace, electric steel making. It does not use iron ore, it uses scrap metal. We recycle scrap metal. Nucor is the world's single largest recycler of scrap of any type, whether it be paper, plastic, you name it. We recycle over 25 million tons of scrap metal every year here in the United States. And that technology of electric arc furnace steel making, where you don't have to go back and dig the ore out of the ground and put a blast furnace in, coke ovens, and everything else, is very environmentally friendly in and of itself. But then when you're taking scrap metal that would go into landfills, otherwise be disposed of, and turning it into new steel, equally as good or better than what it was before, that has enabled Nucor to be a leader way before its time in what's today commonly called the green movement. Not only is our steel, the product that we make, 100% recyclable, but the product we use to make it is 100% recycled. So it's nice to be back in vogue again. We didn't know we went out, but it's nice to know we're back in. Because of that, the U.S. steel industry is the only steel industry in the world. Only one. Not Japan, not Europe. The only one who's not only met the Kyoto requirements, but exceeded it by 600% when it comes to greenhouse gases. The only steel industry in the world. The president knows that, but you would never know that in the United States, with all the talk in the press, that their industry like ours, all right, or all of the folks in Japan who said they were going to do it, and all the folks in Europe that said they were going to do it, and what have you, and have not done it, haven't even come close to it. The U.S. steel industry is exceeded it by 600%. Our variable cost structure comes from the fact that our principal raw material is scrap metal. In good times, demand for scrap is high, price goes up for scrap, but also the price goes up for steel because steel's in demand. When times are bad, what happens? Price of scrap goes down. Why? Because there's no demand. So our cost structure, a major component of our cost structure, drops dramatically. So in tough times, our variable cost structure allows us to be more than competitive with people both in the integrated steel business who use blast furnaces and iron ore, or those companies around the world. Allows us to go in there and have an extremely competitive cost structure in the bad times so that we can actually grow our market share and still remain profitable, with the exception that I've already mentioned about this crisis here, because we fell off the earth so fast, you didn't have time to react to anything. You got stuck with huge inventories, and that's what's driven our lack of profitability so far this year. But that variable cost structure is important. We're a pay-for-performance company from top to the bottom. My salary can go from $800,000 a year to $8 million a year. This year, 2009, which will show up in the 2010 proxy, it will be closer to the $800,000 a year. Our employees work in teams, and they're paid for their performance. 2/3 of their pay is incentive-based. 2/3 of their pay. So they have a tremendous incentive to work hard, work smart, work as a team, to be efficient, and to produce steel at a low cost so that we can sell it in the marketplace at a competitive advantage to our competition. Now you think about that. The average salary in our steel mills today would be, if we were running normal, somewhere around $75,000 to $85,000 a year. That's not benefits, that's just their salary. 2/3 of that is incentive. You don't produce well, you don't produce a quality product, you go home at the end of the week, because we paid that incentive every week, so it's there in front of them. You go home at the end of the week, and your wife says to you, how come you made 50% of what you made last week? You want to talk about real incentive? There's real incentive there, okay? So the spouses of our employees, do more to drive our employees' performance than the management team does. and that's by design. Talk about having your team completely in sync with management's goals, you got it. And it's one of the reasons, we laugh, but it's one of the reasons why we've been so successful and differentiate ourselves so well over the years. So there's a lot of components to our highly variable cost structure. Now, we don't lay people off. We have not laid one employee off in the 45 plus years we've been in business. And for those of you that have been tied to the steel business in any way, shape, or form, or economists, you know that we're in a cyclical business. We have really good years and we've had some really tough years. And they come with regularity over the last 45 plus years. Typically, what do people do? Run companies. Off with their heads, lay them off, let them go. Nucor doesn't do that. Never has. Why? Because it doesn't fit with our culture. How do you build trust and loyalty in your team from the newest employee on up? Because all of us have come up through the organization. How do you build that and have that there for the long term if when times are good, you put your arms around your teammates and you say, Sue, thank you for doing a great job for us. We really need you, you're important to us. Bob, likewise. And the first time things get tough, management walks off with $8 million a year salaries, and they lay off 30 to 40% of the workforce. And Bob and Sue are sitting there saying, I thought we were important to you. Well, we are. We'll call you back when things get good again. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't build that trust, that loyalty, that team, that oneness. You can't have them there fighting with you to do extremely well in the good times and fighting through the tough times if you aren't there for them in the tough times. And Nucor and our philosophy and our culture has always been to be there with them in the tough times. Because the good times come back again. Everybody's geared to making those good times come back. And this may be the longest time we go without having those good times come back, but they will come back. And who do you want there with you to help you profit from those good times? A bunch of folks that have never done anything in the steel business before, haven't run a casting machine, electric arc furnace, never been on a sales team, never shipped a ton of steel, doesn't even know what one grade of steel looks like from another. No, you want the people that have been there, that know the business, that can turn it on a dime, because our technology allows us to turn it on a dime. We don't have to shut down a big old blast furnace and keep it down because business gets bad. We can literally have a variable control system on our furnaces, which we do, and we can cut back for 30 minutes, we can cut back for 3 days, we can cut back for an hour. So when times are tough, we ratchet it back as orders tell us to. When times are starting to get better, who's there first to take care of the customer's needs? Nucor people. Nucor is. Not U.S. Steel, not Middle. They got this big old blast furnace that makes 6,000 tons a day, and they can't operate it unless it's operating at 80% of its normal capacity. Well, if business is so bad they got to shut it down, they're not going to turn it back on real quick until they know for sure, unless they make mistakes and get stupid, they're not going to bring it back too early because they're not going to be able to run it efficiently or safely. These things blow up on you. And so we sit there and we're able to move in and out of the marketplace with the ultimate of flexibility. So it also pays to have your workforce ready to go. So all of these things, these philosophies reinforce one another to drive long-term profitability and long-term success for our employees, for our customers, our shareholders, and yes, for the leadership team. Technological innovation. Of all the steel companies in the world, Nucor is best known for innovation in steel making. We've revolutionized the way steel is made more than once in our 45-year history, and we'll come and talk about that a little bit more. Our people, we've talked a little bit about that already. We'll talk some more about that. Market leadership. When you make the most money is when you find that you are the market leader in any one product segment. And by market leader, I don't mean you make the most tons, although that certainly helps. It means that you are the leader in taking care of your customers, servicing your customers, delivering value to your customers. And when people look around and say who they want to do business with, they pick Nucor, not the other guys, especially in the tough times. And lastly, we're the most diversified steel producer in North America. So we make more of all the steel products than anybody else. And by virtue of doing that, we're able to tie our customers to us even greater than any of our competitors do. So our business model covers a lot of territory. But at the end of the day, it's driven by taking care of your people, having a long-term focus, and being profit-driven. If profit comes from being bigger, so be it. It doesn't necessarily follow, but sometimes it does. As I mentioned, it starts with our culture, our long-term focus, commitment to employees. Safety comes first. Anybody in our operation can shut down the line if they believe something is unsafe, or there's an unsafe practice, or one of their teammates is doing something unsafe. Anybody. Don't have to be a supervisor or a manager. Teamwork is absolutely critical. Every area of the plant is organized into teams. And the teams are not just teams in name only. Their pay is tied to how well they do as a unit. And our structure is put together to reinforce that. Continual improvement, pay for performance, continual improvement. Continual improvement is really our middle name at Nucor. Because every day, our employees, from the newest employee in the company to the CEO, are empowered to find ways to improve the way we do things, whether it's in safety or quality or costs or productivity, efficiencies. Every employee is empowered to improve the process, improve the operation, improve how we work together. They're encouraged to. And not only just in word, but in deed. We hold get-togethers, we call them Nucor forums. We bring employees from every division from around the company into Charlotte, and we talk about these things. What can we do? What are we doing good? What are we doing bad? What do we need to improve upon? So it's a living, breathing part of the culture. I mentioned about our no layoff practice. We have a very decentralized structure. Not everything is done at the division, never has been, but most things are done at the division. When it comes to spending money, you got to get approval from Charlotte above certain amounts. When it comes to setting pricing policies, in order that we do things uniformly around the country, that comes from Charlotte as well with the input and the guidance from the operations. But the day-to-day business of running those plants, no matter how big or how small, is in the hands of the people at those locations. As I mentioned, we've been profitable every year up until 2009. And it's tough to take, but at the end of the day, we'll be better than our competition. And that's, at the end of the day, that's relative differential is key to survivability. And that's what most people are trying to do in business today in this country, is survive. The key to all of this, the way you know whether you've been successful is obviously over a period of time what happens, but it's have your employees, have your teammates taking ownership of the company, its goals, its culture, its drive for improvement. And the answer resoundingly has been yes, and our whole system is designed to build that ownership from top to bottom in the company. Ken Iverson, our founding father, who's world-renowned as the second coming of Andrew Carnegie from the standpoint of revolution in steel business. He said it pretty clearly. How do you explain Nucor's success at 70% culture and 30% technology? While Nucor can be the first at using technology or developing technology, at the end of the day, over time, everybody can buy the same equipment. So what's going to set you apart? The thing that sets you apart are your people and this culture and the system that they're integrated into, and whether they drive it or you have to drive them. And if you have to drive them, it's kind of like getting your teenager to do something. 9 times out of 10, it ain't going to happen the way you wanted it to. But if they're driving the process and they've done it and they're doing it in the right way, that builds success. Ken Iverson once said, if during the bad times we had failed to look past the short-term consideration of this quarter's earnings, would we have gone on to compile such a record of sustained growth and profitability? His answer to that question was, I'm certain we would not. He was also asked if management thought of our employees as nothing but headcount, a term that seems far more appropriate to cattle than to people. Would they be as motivated and productive as they are today? And again, his answer was clearly no. Not just in word, but in the talk that he walked. And that's been with us and has been part of who we are in Charlotte today, even though Ken has passed away back in 2001. Culture can be shown in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's all the little things you do that reinforces it. You know, one of the things that we've done forever to reinforce the ownership in the company is, if you take a look at our annual report, on the cover of the annual report for every year that we've been in business, except one, you found the names of every employee in the company. I've been with Nucor since 1982. I am the chairman and CEO today. I still look for my name. Maybe it'll be a signal if I find it's not there someday. I need to talk to the board of directors or something. But it's just one small way that it gets reinforced. And Nucor does this in 1,000 different ways. In the way we support community service, in the way we support the children of our employees with $3,000 a year scholarships to go to a VOTEC school, a community college, a four-year college. How the spouses get $1,500 a year to further their education, and books and tuition reimbursements. How every employee gets $3,000 a year in books and tuition reimbursement to further their education. Walking the talk, putting your money where your mouth is, constantly reinforcing the fact that continual improvement is important, both as a company and as individuals. Today, we haven't laid off any employees. They're all working and getting paid for 40 hours a week minimum, and they get paid bonus based upon whether we have orders to run or not. If they're producing steel, they're making bonus. While they haven't been laid off and while they're not making the kind of money they made a year and a half ago, they have not lost one penny in benefit. They have not lost $1 in scholarship or health care or any other benefit that they've had in normal good times. That is taking care of your people. Not pointing them off on the taxpayer, not pointing them off on the government, but taking care of your own with your own. And if there's not enough work to do in the plant, and we don't have enough maintenance work to do, the guys clean bathrooms. They clean their own bathrooms in the plant. Did we ask them to do that? Nope. Word of mouth. One division started doing it, saving money. Another division started doing it. Now everywhere in the company, the employees clean their own bathrooms. Try and find that in a unionized shop. It ain't going to happen. Okay, and it's not necessarily that the unions are bad. It's just that the labor management relations don't exist. The trust doesn't exist to the level that would support that kind of culture. They cut the lawns, and then if there's still nothing to do, we're still paying them for 40 hours a week, we send them out to the community to work on community projects, to help at community centers, to do landscaping work, to build, in addition to a building, to a church. Our employees are out there doing those type of things, supported by the company. And why? Because at the end of the day, times are tough, but that doesn't mean you don't want your people to feel good about who they are and the contribution they're making, whether it be to the company or the community. So if you can get through these tough times and be there and support the efforts of your employees and get them doing things that are going to bring to them this feeling of increased self-worth, even though times are so tough that they can't make their house payments sometimes, or they can't make their car payments, or they're worried about whether they got to pull their kid out of college, and companies all around the country. There's no reason why you can't do things to help your employees feel good about themselves. So when times get better, they're there giving 110% because they want to, not because it's expected of them. Yeah, Nucor's won a lot of awards as a company, mostly through the efforts of all of those teammates. For 4 out of 5 years, we've been in the Business Week top 50. For a couple of years, we were in the top, I think for 4 out of those 5 years, or 4 of those years, we were in the top 10. And 1 year, we were number 1. Fortune magazine, Forbes magazine, gotten a lot of awards. Our pay for performance system for management is recognized to be the most efficiently paid management team for rewards to the shareholders of any of the steel companies and most companies in the United States. We ranked number 6 on the most efficiently paid management team by Forbes and Fortune in 2008. Things like that, those are the kind of awards you want to be able to boast about. Nucor last year was ranked number 106 in the Fortune 500. We're the largest steel producer in the United States. We have a safety goal of 0, but to get to 0, you got to have intermediate goals, and our intermediate goal is to be lower than 1/3 of the national industrial average. Today we are far exceeding that in terms of safety performance, doing extremely well, and we're the safest steel company in the industry, both here and globally. As I mentioned, we're the largest recycler in North America, but not only North America, in the world as an individual company. We've made large investments in environmental technology, new technologies, whether they are meant to be environmentally friendly or not. New technologies many times bring an environmental improvement, a reduction in energy consumption, a reduction in emissions, and we'll show you some of that in a little bit here as well. I mentioned our highly flexible production process, our low-cost structure, and talk about decentralized. We used to joke that there's more people on smoke break at U.S. Steel than there is in our entire corporate headquarters. Okay, we have grown from 23 to 86 at corporate headquarters over the last 10 years. That's a significant growth, most of it because of things like Sarbanes-Oxley, Regulation FD, our tax departments, our internal audit groups. That's where most of the growth has taken place, with one exception. And we put together a strategy that involved acquisitions, and we put together a half a dozen people that focused on the acquisition part of our business, and we'll talk about that part of our business in a little bit, of how we kind of changed the way Nucor did business in a positive way. Again, our teams function on the idea that we are mutually dependent on one another, whether it be our customers, our teammates, or our shareholders. Our customers' interests, they want quality steel. They want it delivered on time or sooner. And they want us to take care of their needs. Now, there's a big difference between taking care of and satisfying. Okay? And it's always important to understand the language and the words we use. Because if my son wants to use the car at 13 years old so he can go pick up his new girlfriend, all right, but he doesn't have a driver's license, I might be satisfying him if I let him have the keys, but I wouldn't be taking care of my son if I did. And sometimes with our customers, we're all in business to make a profit. We're all in business to make money. Sometimes our customers would like to have us give them the steel at lower and lower and lower prices. Unless it devalues their inventory, then they don't want us to do that. But sometimes we have to do things in a way that we provide, hopefully, the best value to our customer as well as to ourselves in relation to the overall market. So our job is to take care of our customers, to be there for them, to do the things they absolutely depend upon, but we're not always going to be able to satisfy everything that they want from us. And sometimes we'll have to agree to disagree. And that holds true with our employees, too. You have 50 employees in a room, you have one question, you're looking for the answer, you might get 50 different ideas. All right? Well, you can't use all of them. All right? At the end of the day, you're going to work through the top 2 or 3 best. Does that mean the other 47 walk away unhappy, pissed off? No. Okay? Because you do it in a way that they benefit from putting those 3 ideas in place, too. They get the benefit of it. So it's to their advantage to put the best ideas in place. Employees' interests, our compensation system, I've mentioned that to you already. We have our entire benefit structure, entire way that we do business is very egalitarian, and there's no, CEO parking spots. If I get in late, I park at the back of the parking lot and walk all the way in, whether it's raining or sunny or not. We all share the same benefit programs, health care. The only thing we don't share is that none of the senior officers can participate in the student scholarship program or the tuition reimbursement program, basically on the fact that, listen, this is to drive continued improvement in our employees. They go through good times and bad times. They make good money. They make We don't make as much money, but even when we're not making as much money as senior management, we can afford to take care of those needs ourselves. But we don't have a souped-up health care plan. It's the same one as the newest employee in the company. You know, advancement, we work very hard to hire the right people, to fit with our culture, and then to promote from within, because the culture is such an important component to the success of this company. You have to do it in a way that drives diversification, that is fair and equal to everybody, but you have to, at the end of the day, you've got to be putting people in your organization who are going to succeed in your culture. The culture we're talking about is not a racial culture, it's not an ethnic culture, all right? It's a business culture, a way of interacting with people. And so we spend a lot of time, even at the lowest entry levels, working to hire the right kind of people who are going to fit in, will fit into a team environment, are focused on continual improvement, that have good communication skills, that have a strong work ethic, and other things that we look at to make sure we hire the right people. Because if there's anybody in HR in this room here, don't fall out of your chair. We firmly believe and have shown, as you probably have, that people are not your most important resource, are not your most important resource. Now, in many places, that would be heresy to say that. Your most important resource are the right people. The right people. You owe it to all the members of your team to make sure that you're hiring or promoting the right people. And they are your most valuable resource. And there's a big distinction between the two. We are in a tough, competitive business. We have to make a profit to survive, to be able to generate capital, to grow, to expand, to innovate, to take care of our employees and their families and our shareholders. The key to success is having the right people on your team. And you better spend the time and the money and the effort right from the get-go to hire the right people. And you're still going to make mistakes, and you'll have to deal with that. And you'll have to deal with it in a fair and an equal way. But the right people are the key to your success. We've already talked about how people are treated, and it really is based upon treating people the way you would want to be treated. And while we're not perfect at it, that's what we work for, that's what we strive for, and that's how we interact together. These are 4 basic tenets that Ken put in place from day one at Nucor. And we still live by, and it headlines our policy book for all employees that they get when they hire on with the company. Management is obliged to manage the company in a way that employees will have the opportunity to earn according to their productivity, according to how well they do their jobs, how well they work together as a team. Employees should feel confident that they do their jobs properly, they will have a job tomorrow. Employees have the right to be treated fairly and must believe they will be. Again, the walk and the talk have to be in sync. Employees have an avenue of appeal when they believe they are being treated unfairly. Every employee in the company has the right to go all the way to the chairman and CEO to bring his or her issue to his or her attention. Now, there's a whole process there's a chain of communication in between, but there's only 4 levels between the newest employee and myself. That's it, 4 in the entire company. We don't believe in excessive middle management. We don't believe in unions for one principal reason. It gets in the way of easy communication. And easy communication, up and down, left and right, is key to the right people being able to do their jobs in the most efficient way possible. And to have effective communications. Not meetings, to have meetings, to have meetings, to have meetings, not to build up internal bureaucracy that slows everything down. Our government is the kingpin for that. Shareholder interests. You know, if we take care of our customers and we take care of our employees, we know that our shareholders will be rewarded. And that happens through compounded annual growth targets of 10 to 15% or more. And I'll show you where we are today and where we have been the last 10 years. Stock appreciation, dividend plans. We have special dividend plans on top of our core dividend plan. And it's basically a share of the pain, share of the gain type of philosophy, pay for performance. When a company does really well and we're generating lots of cash and we don't have a use for that cash, we establish a special dividend. We paid that for 4 years, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08. We're no longer paying it now because things are tough again. When things get good again, we'll share more of the wealth again with our shareholders through a special dividend. They understand that it's going to come and go with the market, but it adds value and it adds to the shareholder returns, and it's much appreciated. Our single largest shareholder owns over 10% of Nucor, State Farm, have since day one. They have that 10% stake, never bought or sold a share of stock in 40 years. And they love our special dividend. And they understand that it can come and go, but they love it. And because it brings money in when they can use it for other things or even use it to maybe someday invest more in Nucor, but we're happy with them being 10% plus shareholder. Ken wrote a book called Plain Talk. Some of you may have read it. Some of the things in there that I wanted to highlight, basically we ask our employees to produce more product for less money. That doesn't mean they get paid less money. They get paid more money. That means at lower cost to produce. So we can be competitive and we can grow our company. And yeah, at the sake of our competition. We have little tolerance for the politics, the pettiness, the fixation on rank and status, or the insensitivity to employees' needs that people in most big companies endure as a matter of course. Right out of graduate school, I went to work for a company called Republic Steel. Republic Steel was at the end of its great life cycle as a great American company. It was bureaucratic. It was run by lawyers. And it was the worst place to work. It epitomized everything that Nucor wasn't. That's when I got the opportunity as a young engineer to work for Nucor. I jumped at it, even though I went to Plymouth, Utah, Paul. A town of 250 people, by the way. Ken Iverson used to joke, the way that he decided where to put a steel plant, he'd fly into a major airport, turn on the radio in his rental car, drive until the radio stopped playing, and build a plant. That was Plymouth, Utah. Jewett, Texas. Norfolk, Nebraska. It's a joke. It's been around for about 40 years. He also said, when is laying people off the practical and sensible thing to do? Can we expect employees to be loyal and motivated if we lay them off at every dip of the economy while we go on padding our own pockets? If President Obama wants to know how business should be structured in this country, he should take a lesson from Ken Iverson and from Nucor. What Nucor management has been able to do is get workers to identify their own interests fundamentally with those of management, something managers have been attempting to do since the dawn of industry. They have taken ownership in our goal, and Nucor's success is their success, and Nucor's failure is their failure. Not because we say it, because they live it, they believe it, they breathe it. One of the things that supports this culture is an absence of fear. Fear of management. They have recourse all the way to the top of the company. I answer my own phone. I answer my own emails, as my wife will attest to, at all hours of the night. Fear of unfair treatment, fear of layoffs, fear of politics, and most of all, fear of failure. Ken was a firm believer that if people aren't reaching to the point of failing every now and then they are not doing what you need them to do. And he never berated anybody, any manager or employee down to the entry level for failing. The only time that he would lose it is if it was the same failure over and over again, that he would not tolerate. Not learning from our mistakes is not tolerated. We work very hard to understand why something went wrong and to learn from it. Throughout the company, we benchmark across teams, across divisions, East Coast to West Coast, United States to Canada and vice versa. We benchmark to make sure that we learn from our mistakes and that we learn from our successes as well. I mentioned before, financial strength is a key component. I'm not going to go through all the things on this slide here. You can take a look at it. But one of the things that differentiates one company from another is how they deal with their financial structure. We've always maintained a very low debt-to-capital ratio, a debt-to-equity ratio. It's part of our culture. We're okay if it's 25 to 30%. We're happier if it's 10 to 15%. We'll go to 50% for an acquisition or something that's going to add a lot of profitable growth to the company. As long as you can get us that stream of income from that investment will get us back down to the 25% less level within 3 years. If any of you follow the steel industry, you'll see a lot of companies recapitalize themselves by selling stock earlier this year. They had debt covenants coming due, they were in trouble, they borrowed too much money in the good times, and they needed to do something. So they went out and they sold stock. One company, we'll call it Company X, for lack of a better term. Their steel stock got up to $200 a share in the good times, down to $16 a share after the collapse. They went out and sold stock at $26 a share to raise capital. Another company, we'll call N, for lack of a better term, in May and June of 2007, because we were actively growing the company, we had about $2+ billion in acquisition opportunities in front of us. And we said to ourselves, you know, this thing is going to end someday. Do we really want to take on that much debt? And we said, no, maybe we should do a stock offering and a debt issuance, a combination thereof. And we said to ourselves, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is if things go down the toilet, we've just strengthened our balance sheet to get through the bad times. So we went to the street. We issued, as it says here, about $4.3 billion and raised about $4.3 billion in capital. We issued long-term debt in two groups, and we issued equity of $2 billion. Our peak in our stock price was $83 a share. We issued stock, we sold stock to the street when it was $74 a share. Who used the shareholders' capital more efficiently, Company X or Company N? Anybody want to take a guess? Company N, obviously. Issued stock at the peak, okay, as opposed to at the bottom. Why? Somebody up there likes us, maybe. Maybe Ken was looking down on us, all right? Maybe my mother was looking down on us, I don't know. We made the right decision at the right time, or maybe it was just part of our culture, part of our overall strategy that put us in the position to make the right decision at the right time. You choose. I choose to believe in all three, okay? But it's what differentiates from our competition. And it's put us in a very good position to deal with what turned out to be the mother of all crises. And someday we'll get back to acquiring companies again if it makes sense. I mentioned our variable cost structure. That gives you an idea of how scrap prices varied over time. You can see how high they went up in good times and how far they've come down in bad. That does nothing but, you know, we can't fight the reality of the cycle, but we can benefit from the variable cost structure to be profitable or more profitable in our competition in the bad times because we're a scrap-based entity as opposed to an ore-based entity. Talked about our highly flexible production process, turning on and off the switch at a moment's notice. Technological innovation. Nucor revolutionized steel making with electric arc furnace steel making. We weren't the only ones, but we were the main driver of it back in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that allowed us to go in and compete with integrateds with major cost advantages of $100 to $200 a ton on a $300 to $400 a ton product. You have that kind of advantage, you can grow, and that's what we did. And we grew in every sense of the word. And there was technology, the use of technology that no one else was willing to try on a large scale. It was our organizational structure and our culture that allowed us to take full value out of that technology. It was also the availability of low-cost electricity, which there was beaucoup of for most of the last 40 years. God only knows what's going to be in front of us, but energy was a very core component of our ability to maintain a low-cost structure overall. And we believe we'll still be in a competitive position going forward. We did things with various forms of casting, of near-net shapes, that cut out a lot of processes and a lot of yield loss and a lot of time in the process, a lot of energy. All these things over time are part of the continuing improvement. The next major step in radical technology in the steel industry, again, was implemented by Nucor. In the mid-'80s, we adopted a technology called compact strip processing, CSP, okay, which enabled the mini mills, which we were, electric arc furnace based, to get into the last domain of the big integrated companies, which we were never going to get into, according to them, and that was sheet. Sheet products, thin gauge, wide sheet that goes into everything from refrigerator skins to appliances of all types, to cars, to roofing materials, to decking, to trucking industry products, you name it. And again, we had a couple $100 a ton cost advantage over the integrateds, but we screwed up. Even great companies screwed up, and we didn't tie up the technology, which was the biggest mistake Nucor has ever made in the history of its existence. And because we didn't tie up the technology, and we could have because nobody else was willing to use it, we just didn't push hard enough, didn't negotiate hard enough. At the end of the day, it allowed for Nucor lookalikes to pop up using the same technology almost immediately. So our cost advantage now against the integrateds kind of disappeared because we weren't just competing against the integrateds, we were competing against Nucor lookalikes. And we didn't have that cost advantage. And listen, it may sound like it's nice to be innovative and to put new technologies in and, don't we feel great? But unless it delivers value, all right, you may have a better mousetrap, but it's not killing mice any cheaper or better than the old mousetrap. And we gave away our competitive advantage, and that was the single biggest mistake, and we've been fighting that mistake since basically 1990 with Nucor lookalikes. And that is the most difficult part of our business to be profitable in today, because we gave away the technology. And that's why it's so important for technology to be protected by companies, by countries, from other countries and from other companies. Because you develop the technology, you commercialize it, and then you give it away, or someone steals it, gets away with it, you've just lost all your investment, and you've lost whatever advantage you had, and now you're in a business that's never going to be as profitable as it should have been or could have been. And that's one big example of it. We will never, ever let that happen again. We are working on several other new technologies. We've commercialized something called cast strip. You're casting from liquid to sheet, 0.8 millimeters thick by 60 inches wide in one step. No rolling, just liquid to finished product. It sits in a room this size. We'll talk a little bit more about that with this slide here to give you an idea of the comparison from the caster through to the end of the process. If you take a look at the top, that is conventional, what the integrateds use today. To the right, thin slab casting, that's what Nucor developed, the one we gave the technology away on and created Nucor lookalikes. And then on the lower left, you see the cast strip footprint. And you get an idea of the order of magnitude changes, and the benefits change with the same order of magnitudes. Market leadership is an important part of our success, and these are the product lines that we are market leaders in. It's a nice long second, third, or fourth. We're working to become number one and number two. We're the most diversified steel producer, and this gives you an idea of the breakdown in the different product types, whether it be sheet, bars, beams, plate, downstream products, or integrating upstream into raw materials. Our business areas consist of bar mills, structural beam and plate mills, sheet mills, joists, pre-engineered metal buildings, rebar fabrication, and we're also in the scrap business. And we also produce our own direct reduced iron. There's 21 steel mills in the company around the country in those various product groups, mostly in bar, sheet, and then beams, plate, and one wire rod mill. We have 4.5 million tons of downstream capacity where we use the steel we make in our steel mills to make other products, sometimes intermediate products, sometimes they're finished products for the customer. We're in the raw material base, and we're also international. We have 4 steel mills in Italy. We're a 50-50 joint venture in that. And we have a direct reduced iron facility in Trinidad, Tobago, mostly because gas was under $2 and still is to this day, and has been and will be for 25 years, which is the principal cost factor besides iron ore and producing direct reduced iron, which also has a 50% less carbon footprint than blast furnace, coke oven iron produced by integrated producers. To give you an idea of where we're located, these are where our steel mills are at in the country. We have one in Seattle, and then in Utah, where I spent 9 years with my family. We have 26.2 million tons of steel making capacity at our steel mills. Various product groups. Our fabrication divisions, Volcraft, Verco. We have some folks from Verco here. Decking plant manufacturing division in California and Phoenix. We have building systems, pre-engineered metal buildings, fasteners, and Nucor, which is a steel framing for residential housing. Those are our locations. This gives you that, whoops, wrong way. We also have rebar fabrication, principally through our Hare Steel acquisition, and it shows you where our operations are around the country, and we're growing as we speak. And we have 4.5 million tons of downstream finished production capacity at these operations. We also have scrap yards around the country because it is our principal raw material, and we decided to get into that business to help control our costs and our supply lines and just-in-time delivery. And as I mentioned, we have 4 operations in Italy. Okay, subject of the talk. How did we reinvigorate and get Nucor going again? Why did we have to? What the hell happened? I mean, you've just been talking about this great company with this great culture and great performance. Well, back in, I don't know how we're doing on time. Somebody gonna, 10 after 9 now. We got 5 or 6 minutes. Oh shoot, I can't say goodbye in 5 or 6 minutes. 95 to 2000, we had stagnation because we gave away that technology, okay? That's basically the bottom line there. 2001 to 2003, the industry fell apart because of overcapacity, both globally and here. 2004 to 2008, we implemented, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And today, well, who knows? We're in the middle of it as we speak. Key part of establishing how we were going to deal with the 2001 to 2003 crisis in the steelmaking industry, both here and globally, was to go back and look at our history and to recognize that we'd always conducted ourselves in downturns and viewed them as opportunities to grow our company. Not times to panic, not times to let people go, but times to grow, because everything's cheaper to do in tough times. And if you've got a strong balance sheet, which is part of our core culture, and less low debt, you can take on additional leverage when everybody else is running for the hills. And that's basically what we did. Key message here, if you wait until a downturn to put in place your strategy to survive it, you're screwed. You've already failed. All right? There's no two ways about it. You will miss the opportunities, and you'll be lucky to stay in business depending upon how severe the downturn is. You can't wait to the last minute. This, not too many students in the room, but cramming, is not the best way to retain knowledge anyway. It may get you through the test, but down the road it may not help you too well. Been there, done it. Without Vibrant, I never would have succeeded. The right business model, if you take nothing away from our conversation thus far today than this, is one that allows prosperity in good times and survival and strengthening in the ugly times. And that's what Nucor's business model has been, and that's what has enabled us to continue to grow in good times and in bad times. We put together a business model that says you take care of your people, and they'll be there when you need them. You put together a business model that says be conservative fiscally, and you'll have the money when you need it to grow your company, to take advantage of other people's problems, okay? And things of that nature, the things we've talked about today. The right stuff. These are the things that we've already mentioned. Our financial strength, our low-cost structure, our highly flexible production capabilities and technology, innovation, product diversification, and the right people. What strategy do we put together? Well, as a new CEO and 5 new executive vice presidents in the company that weren't there in those levels prior to 2000, and we had to sit down and convince the board that one of us could be CEO, and we had to put together a strategy that was going to reinvigorate Nucor's growth after the flat period we had in the mid to late 90s because we gave away a technology that we were not able to recover from. So we went back, looked at our history, looked at what had worked in the past, built upon that to establish a strategy going forward. And what did we look at? Well, we said, listen, number one, if you don't take care of what you got, you don't have to worry about what you're going to get. And it won't be pretty. So no matter what your growth strategy is, you better keep reinvesting and keeping your current facilities up to date in the latest technology, getting your employees, your teammates to keep improving their skill sets and support that training and development and that knowledge gaining. Number one priority, optimize your existing operations. Okay, historically we had grown our company through greenfield. That means starting with a patch of dirt and building something that wasn't there before. And we were really good at it. But one of the problems we had is we got stuck in this mindset. This is what we do well. And if you couldn't do that anymore because there was overcapacity in the world, it didn't make sense to build new plants, what are you going to do, sit around with your hands in your pockets? You're not going to reestablish the company's growth and leadership position in the industry by doing that. So while greenfield growth was important if we could do it, and we could do it using new technologies or finding a unique marketing niche, we had to do more than that. We had to look at international growth, but we preferred to do it through joint ventures because we didn't have an ego that said we could do anything anywhere for anybody. We learned from our history that culture was very important. So our philosophy was find a partner who's successful in other regions in the world and partner with them. Don't think you can go into Brazil and run the plant and the facilities yourselves. And know that culture, know the people, know what they respond to. Don't be so egotistical. A lot of companies have been and have failed. So joint ventures is a slower growth mode, but the risk is significantly less. And it builds a long-term successful business model internationally. That's why we adopted it, and we've done a couple of them. And the big change for Nucor was pursue strategic acquisitions. We built things. We didn't buy things. For 30-something years, we built things better than anybody else. Now, what made us think we could buy things and integrate them and transition properly and get our culture to be passed along? All things are important to us. But we took that challenge on and said, listen, let's focus on what really are the core components of what we've been good at. And what we've been good at is investing the shareholders' capital wisely and efficiently and productively. What we've been good at is working with people and developing strong teams. What we've been good at is adopting technologies and new technologies. Okay? So why don't we just take a look and see if we can apply all of our successful building blocks to acquisitions. We started small. We put a few criteria in place. We focused on being disciplined because 85% of all acquisitions tend to fall apart. Why do they fall apart? We studied that. We said, well, the first thing they do is they overpay. They convince themselves they can do things that the other guys weren't smart enough to do. Okay, so they overpay for these things, get themselves into a financial bind. All right, they get into businesses they don't know anything about. Their egos have run wild. Very important rule. Do not let your egos get the better of you. And the way you do that in the steel business is you stay in touch with the people at the grassroots, because they will bring you back to the harsh realities of making steel and steel products in a hurry. And do things that are culturally compatible with you. For us, buying a unionized company, the first time we were going to acquire a company, we might as well put a 44 Magnum up to our head and blow our brains out. We weren't going to succeed, no matter how good we were. That would have been, again, a case of runaway ego. We can do anything. We're Nucor. No. Recognize your limitations in this world, work to overcome them, but recognize what they are and live within them until you can overcome them. So we decided that we would not buy companies that were culturally incompatible with us. And we'd buy companies that were as close to culturally compatible as we could find, and then the transition would be easier. And it worked. One of the things that we did to help people understand pay for performance, we said, well, you get a fixed pay. You're going to make $50,000 this year. You get most of your pay is in base. You get a little bit of 10% incentive. We're going to change all of that. We're going to give you the opportunity to make, 1/3 of what you were making before in base salary. Aren't you excited? And then we said, but we're going to give you the opportunity to make more money than you would make in a normal year under the old system through incentive. And they said, we don't believe you. And the wives came in and said, we don't believe you. Okay, so we said, listen, is this a fair way to do it? We'll keep both pay systems in place for a year. You work to make the changes that we want to implement. You work together as a team better than you ever have. You adopt the Nucor culture. You focus on improvement, working together as a team, becoming more efficient. And at the end of the year, you don't make more money under the Nucor incentive system than under the old system, we'll pay you the higher of the two. They said, okay, we can live with that. So that's what they did. 6 months later, they went to the new incentive system. The wives came in, we're happy, giving everybody hugs and kisses. We knew we were successful. And that's how it started with our first acquisition, building trust, walking the talk with people, saying one thing but doing something different doesn't work, but saying something and making it work and showing that it will work and giving it the opportunity to work makes all the difference in the world. Okay, we're going to go through these slides fairly quickly just to give you an idea of what we accomplished. We spent $5.4 billion in acquisitions, acquired 32 companies. Never done an acquisition before in our lives, and we were able to go through this over that period of time between 2001, really 2000 and 2008. These are some of the companies that we added on. One of the true testimonies to whether or not our culture would work or not in acquisitions is highlighted in this slide with 3 components. If you take a look at the one on the left, it shows you where we were in raw materials, in the middle, steel mill, and where we were downstream at the beginning of our implementation of this new strategy, which included acquisitions, but not just acquisitions. And then in 2008, you see how we grew in raw materials and what our continued focus to grow to is. If you take a look at the steel mill capacities in 2000, that's where Nucor was. If you take a look at the bar to the right of that, 5.9 million tons came through acquired capacity. 6.5 million tons came through productivity improvements at those acquired facilities. If you want proof that the Nucor system worked and worked well and was adopted well and transitioned well, there's no greater proof than that. We got more out of improving those operations than what they were producing before we bought them in their peak years. And this slide to the right, that's the key one right in the middle there. And the slide to the right shows you how we grew with respect to our downstream. Here's our compounded annual growth rate, 25% from 2000 to 2008. Nice slope. Unfortunately, it's not going to continue this year. Compared to our major competitors in the industry, here's what our return on equity was over this period of 2004 to 2008, the best in the industry. We did it while maintaining the lowest leverage of any of those same competitors, 28.3%. If you take a look at the cash from operations, 2004 through 2008, pretty darn good. Even 2009, for all the crisis we're in, the cash generation is still pretty good. Not great, not as good, anywhere near what it was in 08, but it'll be significantly greater than where we were in 2000 through 2003. Long-term profitable growth, this is an example of the dividends, the pay for performance that we shared with our shareholders during these very good years. The green is our base rate. You see we've grown our base rate considerably during this period, but we also paid a special dividend in the upper half of that bar graph to reward our shareholders, share with our shareholders the benefits of our success, in addition to the stock price going from 7 to 83 during that same period. It's now just shy of 50. Cash returned to shareholders overall through stock repurchases and dividend, very strong performance, a lot of happy shareholders. 2009, challenging times. Take a look at the jobs. So this graph here tells a lot about how long this recovery is going to take. If you don't focus on any other graph you're studying, this is a graph you want to take away and remember with respect to your business and its economy and the success that this president will or will not have in getting us out of this mess. He didn't get us into it, although there's plenty of blame to go in Congress, Democrats, Republican, Bush, you name it, Clinton, all the way back to Bush 1. But he's got to get us out of this by doing the right things. And that's what I talked to him about in a lunch that I had with him about a month and a half ago. I showed him this slide. Here's where we are at the latest data reported. Look at the various different recessions. Look at where the current recession's got us. Look at the fall off. What's even more concerning is look at the shapes of the curves from one recession to the next, to the next, to the next. What's happening? They're getting flatter. What is that telling you? We're having more and more of a jobless recovery. This is 40 months out after the start of job losses. 40 months. Where is this going to be 40 months from now? 60 months from now? It's a big concern, particularly with Americans having lost $15 trillion in wealth. Got some of it back now, but got a long way to go. It's going to be slow, it's going to be tough, and you better be prepared for it. You want to know how bad it really is? Take a look at the two unemployment indicators that the government has. And the only reason why you see it reported in the New York Times today or the Wall Street Journal is because of Nucor. Because we insisted that they focus on the entire unemployment rate. The difference between the two is the top unemployment rate, which is 16.8 today, includes all those who've given up looking for work, all those who are in part-time employment. This doesn't even count the million-plus people every year that are new coming into the workforce that need jobs. This is just the folks that are here. This is the indication of how serious this thing is. There's more people today who've given up looking for work than ever in the history of this country, going back to the Great Depression. There's more people who are working part-time today than ever in any recession in the history, because more companies have gone to doing what Nucor does, not laying their people off, but every one of our 21,000 employees is a part-time worker. They're not working full work weeks. They're not making but 40% of what they, or 60% of what they made before. Now it's time for me to go. This is what happened in our industry overnight. We went from full capacity to running at 30 to 40% capacity. Never happened before in the history of this company or the history of this industry in this country. And needless to say, we didn't make any money. But in the first quarter, second quarter, and we're projecting we won't make any in the third quarter, which means we probably will have our first losing year ever. But that's all based upon inventory overhang because of all the pig iron and scrap metal that we had to buy because we were running so good. You got to buy some of this stuff 4 to 6 months out. Well, when you have a market that all of a sudden overnight does this, you can't react fast enough. I tell you what it's going to do for us, because I've talked to the chairman and CEO of Caterpillar and GE. What it's going to do is it's going to bring more manufacturing back to the United States. You know why? Because they got killed with the extended supply chain. They got killed with the inventories all the way throughout the supply chain from overseas. If you read Jeffrey Inmelt's letter to shareholders in 2009, you'll see that he talks about undoing what Jack Welch did. And what both of those CEOs told me is they're going to be buying more steel from domestic manufacturers and less from offshore. And they're changing the whole sourcing philosophy to being purchased locally, sell globally. Totally different. Bodes well for U.S. manufacturing in the long term in this country if we can take advantage of that. And we're not done growing, even though times are ugly. Building a new special bar quality product mill in Memphis. It started up as we speak. New galvanizing facility. And we're expanding our value-added product reach into new products. New heat treating facility at our plate mill, and a new bar mill in Arizona. So that's the story. How do we extricate ourselves from a miserable period of growth? How do we deal with a collapse in the steel industry? We did it by applying the same business model that we had all along. We didn't wait to the last minute to have a business model that would be successful in bad times. We had it all along. We didn't rely on a business model that was only successful in the good times. And that's the key to long-term growth, profitability, survivability, and being the best at what you do in a manufacturing company. Thank you all very much.